what separates every single man on the planet from who he really wants to be is what he's willing to pay for it. That's just the bottom line. How much comfort are you willing to delay?
Mhm,
And so we have an option, right? You
mm,
can raise kids that know that they're loved, that feel your intentionality, regardless of if you know what to do. Knowing perfectly what to do is impossible, but you do get to decide how intentional you are. You do get to decide how present you are. You do get to decide how much you allow the things inside of you to affect the world outside of you, how much you work
mm,
on that. And if you want a shortcut, a guarantee that you're going to be further along than you could have ever been in your entire life, get somebody who's further along than you to
mm.
speak into you. If we can move our ego aside, we can be intentional and we can allow somebody else to speak into our life. You'll have a family, you'll be the man that you want, you'll respect yourself, your wife will respect you, and that's the most important thing.
Today's guest is my new friend, and I'm incredibly inspired by him. Didn't know him, meet him, speak to him until today. He is so open, so transparent. He has lived through some things and is a pastor and is an author and is a husband and is a father, and he leads men to help with inner healing so that their inner worlds can have peace, regardless of what's going on in their outer world. There is so much in this. Give this 15 to 20 minutes. You will stay till the end and you will be incredibly grateful. There's a gift at the end. There's some things that he offers through BraveCo, his organization, at no cost to you, a 12-month program. He's got some other programs coming. This is worth every minute of you participating in this and can be life-changing, not just for you, but based on the way you take action from this conversation, I truly believe that it can have legacy impact. So please, please enjoy this conversation with my new friend, Jason. All right, Jason, welcome to Fatherhood Field Notes. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. How you feeling today?
Man, honestly, today's a crazy day.
Yeah?
It's one of those days. I'm in a really busy season, and I got a lot of projects coming up in a very short amount of time. So today is I was praying this morning. I was like, Lord, I need help with these, five things that are on my plate. If I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Well, then I'm going to be honest with you and share something that happened to me today, and then I'll jump into my questions. So I'm also in a very full season, and this morning I had my alarm. I got up went off at 4:55, and I was getting up ready to
wow.
rock and roll my day. And I walked in the bathroom, brushed my teeth, peed, and I felt God say, because I have a couple big things I'm working on. I felt God say, go back to sleep for an hour. Because my wife's been giving me crap like I need more sleep. So I felt like him say, go back to sleep for an hour. I'll take care of things. And I'm like, okay, you know what I mean? All right. So I went back to bed till 6. And then when I got into my office, I had a meeting with an attorney for a cease and assist letter we were working on for a business I bought. And the guy's starting to steal some clients back. And I've been working on it for like 5-6 weeks. And I had an email in my inbox that things were like moving that I have not moved in the last 5 or 6 weeks. So it's like
Wow.
just such this cool thing where I know God has, wants us to partner with him to do cool stuff here.
Yeah.
And it's that like trusting him with it, because it's like, well, I'm not going to sleep until 10 and just say, all right, God, take care of things. But,
Yeah.
anyways, so that was a story from this morning to share with you.
Yeah. I mean, that's life, isn't it? Life's full
Uh-huh.
on.
Uh-huh. Yes. Okay. So here's my thought. I typically have my normal questions, but before I do that, I just have this feeling. Imagine right now you're in the elevator with somebody. And it's a young dad. It's a young dad. Maybe he has, his kids are under 10, and he learns you do BraveCo and you're involved at a church and you help lead men. And he's like, what do I do? No one ever told me how to be a dad or a husband. And you have 5 minutes or less to just share something, to plant a seed in this guy, to give him a hope that he has the ability to do all of this. What would you tell him as you're exiting that elevator and had a few minutes with him?
The best father that I know is a man who lost his dad at 3 years old, had two abusive fathers, um, left the Bay Area because he was having a nervous breakdown, moved to a small mountain town, and he got involved in a local church, got saved, got involved in a local church, and he asked somebody to father him. And he
Mm,
spent a lot of time with that man. Um, the man who was fathering him, mentoring him, wasn't flashy. He wasn't super talented. He was just faithful. And he held him accountable to reading his Bible, to showing up, to taking care of his wife, to and that man was my dad, you know.
mm,
And so anything that we want in life, we're going to have to sacrifice for. You're going to pay one way or another. You want a good body,
mm,
you know, you're going to pay. You want financial freedom, you got to pay. And what separates every single man on the planet from who he really wants to be is what he's willing to pay for it. That's just the bottom line. How much comfort are you willing to delay? How much gratification are you willing to delay?
mhm,
And so we have an option, right? Every one of us fathers has an option with our kids. You
mm,
can raise kids that know that they're loved, that feel your intentionality, regardless of if you know what to do. Knowing perfectly what to do is impossible. I don't
mhm,
know
mhm,
perfectly what to do. Nobody knows perfectly what to do, but you do get to decide how intentional you are. You do get to decide how present you are. You do get to decide how much you allow the things inside of you to affect the world outside of you, how much you work
mm,
on that. And if you want a shortcut, a guarantee that you're going to be further along than you could have ever been in your entire life, get somebody who's further along than you to
mm,
speak into you. If we can move our ego aside, we can be intentional and we can allow somebody else to speak into our life in the simple, mundane, boring day after day. You'll have a family. You'll be the man that you want. You'll respect yourself. Your wife will respect you. And that's the most important thing.
yeah, yeah. Dude, I love it because it's not, oh, hey, read this book. It's not, hey, know this. It's you're literally saying, my friend, like I'm meeting you right now, but the reality is you need to be fathered into this. It's really the only way to do this is to be fathered into it. Um, and it's
Well,
funny, right? Well, go ahead.
well, to that, we have these expectations that we should know how to do something. I should know how to date a woman.
Yeah,
I should
yeah.
know how to be a great businessman. I should know how to be a great dad. I should know how to be a man. And the truth is that all those things are learned skills. You know,
Mm-hmm.
some may have a propensity towards being better or more talent in one area or another, but in the long run, we all have to either be mentored into something or go through the pain of realizing and finding our own mistakes over and over and over again. And you'll only ever be an amateur if you're the one that creates the pathway in your life. You don't want to do that. You want to have a plan, and then you want other men,
Mm,
including God, to help direct those steps.
yeah.
And that's just the fastest, most sure way to build something, build a marriage, build a business, build a family. Don't do it on your own.
It's funny though, is we'll spend money and time getting a business coach or getting a fitness coach. Those ones are relatively easy for men to justify this spending. I think, hopefully many of us are getting better at, doing the marriage counseling. But typically it's like we do this thing like as we're about to get married, we don't know crap yet. And then we wait till crap's falling apart to go bring somebody into the conversation versus doing the marriage retreats or doing the check-ins, doing the dates, doing those things. Um, as a father, okay, so it's easy. If I go hire a business coach, I'm going to 10x your business from 100,000 to a million, whatever. If I'm thinking about, okay, I'm a dad and I have been forging my own pathway, and for whatever reason Americans glorify that, which I don't love because it's not setting us up for very good success. So
Yeah.
if I can buy into what you're telling me that I need to be fathered, what's the ROI? I mean, obviously you used a big one right now. Do you want your wife to respect you? I mean, yeah, right. That's a huge one. But for you, if you were kind of pitching an ROI of why you would go get coached, mentored, fathered by somebody, um, what would that ROI be? How would you
Yeah, it's
pitch
great.
that?
It's a great question. What every man wants is we really want a life um, uh, of of peace. I mean,
Mm,
even I think even the guy that's the most aggressive man, deep down inside, he doesn't want to feel that way all the time.
mhm,
You don't want to be agitated and frustrated and there's going to be a lot of things that are too big for you, too big for an individual. That's just
mm,
how it was created. And you either suffer under the weight of bearing a burden that's too big for you, right? That's the difference between a burden and a load in Galatians. It says
mm,
that we should carry one another's burden. If you look up that word, it actually means something that if carried alone will be damaging to you. But a load is that piece that gives you responsibility. Don't give away your purpose in life. Don't give away your
mm,
responsibility.
mhm,
That's what gives you purpose. And so when you get coaching or counseling or fathering or mentoring, I don't really care what word it is,
mhm,
you have somebody that really helps you to aim at the right thing. We're all designed to aim. Every man was designed to aim. It's why we like golf and basketball and football.
mm,
It's an aiming sport, right? We like to look at a target and decide, how am I going to hit that out there? Okay.
mhm,
So if we were designed to aim for thousands of years, we've been throwing spears and rocks to hit stuff. If we were designed to aim, the most sure way that you're going to hit a target and to accomplish uh, daily tasks is by having someone in your life that's showing you day after day, week after week, giving you feedback and helping you level up in your life. If you don't have that, you're going to be really frustrated and have a hard time being successful. The return on investment to me for having a mentor or a father or a guide in your life is one, you're going to get to where you are aiming at so much quicker. And
mm,
every man wants to have a target that he's hitting, right? We love aiming. That's why we like football and basketball and baseball. We want to see a target way out there and shoot to hit it. And so we're built to aim. And I think a lot of men in marriage don't know what they should be aiming at or how to hit it.
mm,
So most men that I know are failing at the things that they care about the most because they didn't have a good dad to show them.
yeah,
They didn't, they're a dad. They don't know how to raise their kids. They're a husband. They don't know what it means to win with their wife. And so we live going, I want to pour my time, effort, and energy into my business because it's a very clear aim, right? Like the
mhm,
business is easy. Bring money
right,
in, sell a product, bring money in, keep bringing more money in. The aim is much easier than looking at a family. How do I aim? How do I aim with my wife and my kids? And so that's one. You're ultimately going to feel so much better about your life. The hardest time in my life, one of the hardest times in my life, I felt really depressed for several years,
mm,
2012 to around 16. And I remember I was out in the garage working, and I had this thought that just popped in my mind. I'm breaking my own promises to myself. Now, I had spent 3 years feeling, oh, I hate my life. I don't like what I'm doing. I hate my job.
mm,
And I realized, well, the actual problem is I'm not keeping my own promises. I say I'm going to
mhm,
work out, I'm not going to work out. Um, I say that I'm going to show up and be really present for my family and my kids. I'm fishing 3 to 4 days a week, tying flies every single night. I like to fly fish, I like to tie flies. And really, when it comes down to it, it's like, oh, I don't have any direction. I'm directionless. I'm lying to myself.
mm,
And it wasn't like, oh, I'm cheating, I'm looking at porn, not zero of that stuff. But just not having a clear aim and not showing up and doing what you say you're going to do, it's really frustrating. Most men have checked out in life because they don't know how to win in their life. And
mm,
it's like, what if you anchored yourself to somebody that could show you how to win on a regular basis?
mhm,
That brings so much peace. It's not the work that gets men down. It's not knowing how to get to where they want to go
yeah,
that gets
yeah.
really discouraging.
Yeah, we love the work, but we also like to have the target, right? Like I'll dig a ditch 100 feet if like I kind of know where it is. It's like a game, like I'll put in the work for it. But it's like if there is no end to digging the ditch, like I'm gonna get pretty defeated. And maybe that's where a lot of men find themselves, especially with this American like nuclear family of just like this weird starting over every generation, really. Is like, what is the goal of raising kids? What is the goal of being married? So if you were to answer those, if like, hey, I'm asking you now, what's the goal of marriage and what's the goal of having a family? What would your response be?
Before I answer that, I think there's two questions that every man's asking himself. And the first one is, how do I win? You're constantly
Okay.
asking the question, how do I win?
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't know the rules of the game and what you're aiming at, eventually you'll pick something else. You'll go find something that you can be successful at instead of working on
Mm-hmm.
something that you can't figure out. And again, that's why I poured my time into fishing. 4 days a week I'm fly fishing,
Mm,
get the professional level of fly tying. For what? It's an easy win. I know I can win. And
mm.
but I'm having a hard time winning over here. And because I don't know where to hit.
Right,
And
right, right.
And so the other one is, do I have what it takes, right? John Eldridge gave us that one. Do I have what it
Mm-hmm.
takes? And again, if you don't have a mentor, a leader, a father in your life, well, you're trying to answer
Yeah.
that question from your emotion. Like one day you're like, I do, and the next day you're like, oh, frick, it doesn't feel like it because I'm
Yes,
I'm climbing
yes.
this mountain, I'm getting my freaking butt kicked. But when you have a guide, you have kids, you've got a son, you got a daughter, you look at him, you're like, you can do this. You've got it.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like this for everybody. Oh, let me tell you my story. Oh, you're actually doing better than what I was doing. And you get this feedback that says, oh, I have what it takes. I'm not saying I have what it takes. I'm hearing. Every
Mm-hmm.
single man needs a role model. You have to have somebody that is further ahead that you're going, ooh, I could do that. I could hit that. I could be like that. And it's why Paul said, follow me as I follow Christ. It's why Jesus said, leave everything, leave your identity, leave your jobs, leave everything, leave your comfort, come follow me. I will make you. So Jesus's model, and I know you asked me another question, but I just want to go here for a
No, you're
second.
good.
Jesus's model wasn't, you go figure out you go
Yeah.
find you go do this. Jesus's model was, leave everything, come follow me. I will make you. That's the model for every boy. That should be the model. Think about if your son grew up in a culture where he knew dad, Ned, isn't just invested in me, but the men in this environment are thinking about me.
Mm, yeah.
They have a plan for me. So I'm not just going to be a great, podcaster like my dad, encourager of men, but I could access Jason Vallotton. And Jason
Mm-hmm.
Vallotton's great at marriage counseling. I should have a great marriage because Jason's Ned's good friend and he's invested in pouring in my life. We have a culture. Come follow me. I will make you. That's Jesus's model. When Jesus talks about forming men, what's it look like to form men? It very much was, come follow me. I will make you. And then you guys go do that. Go make disciples. That's the big push. Not go to church on Sunday. I'm a pastor. Been a pastor for 20 years. It's not show up to men's group. I love that. I lead a men's group. It's make disciples.
Yeah.
So I think when we're talking about what does a man get by attaching himself to other men, and by the way, I think that men do it wrong, but we can talk about that later. But what do you get? You get everything. It
Mm,
is, you're now aligned in the way that God has designed a man, a boy to grow and to become strong
mm,
and strengthened. Um,
mm.
what did you ask me? What's the purpose of marriage? Or
Yeah, and I'll just get yeah, I said what's the purpose of marriage and family? But it's like a silly question because deep down we all want to be that 85-year-old guy who
yeah,
has this, if I see somebody who's been married 50 years, you're like there you feel something like, "Whoa." Right? You see a guy who's
yeah,
fishing with his kid and his grandkid at the same time, something inside you goes, "Whoa." Right? So clearly there's something ingrained in us that really matters. It's just, are we talking about that? And are we aware of that? And the default is we go to work. And I think that you brought a lot of clarity around why we do that. Is it's an easy win for me to feel like I'm doing my part in this thing called family,
Mhm.
but I'm typically kind of delegating some of my more important roles of fathering and being a husband. Maybe not a husband. I'm not going to delegate that out to somebody else, but I'm
Sure.
delegating out some of the other like coaching and teaching and guiding and things to a youth pastor or to a kids teacher or a coach, which are all good things, right? That's
Yeah.
part of the village that you're talking
Yep.
about. But I can't give that responsibility away.
Mhm.
So you can answer the question on like why are we married and why do we have kids if you want, but I do think that it is a hard one to answer because it just is.
Well, I think it's back to God's original design for
Mm,
creation, right? Is could you imagine if kids were just born out of wedlock? If you just the goal was just to have kids, right? If the goal is just to have kids like animals live off instinct. Don't have this deep emotional connection. An animal doesn't have
mhm,
a soul.
mhm.
And so
Yeah.
the need of an animal is so different than a need of a human being. A human being has a soul and a spirit. And so a human being's soul needs deep connection. It needs a bond. It needs that shared bond.
Mm,
And so when you look at how we were created, how are you going to populate the planet if you don't have deeply committed people that care
right,
for one
right.
another? And then the greatest benefit, right? A mom gets so much reward off of breastfeeding her baby and caring and
Mm,
nurturing for that. I mean, there's oxytocin and that's released in her brain when she's taking care of and nurturing that little baby. And likewise, a father has the same type of experience when he's playing with his kids. He actually gets a release of dopamine and oxytocin when he's playing with his kids. There's a reward. So God birthed into
mm,
us a reward for taking care of something. And then when you think about it, a man was put on this earth and God gave him instructions: be fruitful, multiply, cultivate the earth, grow things, right? So it's in our DNA to accomplish,
mm,
to cultivate, to multiply, to lead, to be the head of something. And so again, we're talking about if you want to run around life and feel like you're wandering, grasping, feel like you have no purpose, just live life for yourself. See how fulfilling
mhm,
that is. Go on the best hunting
mhm,
trips, go on the best fishing trips, go on the best, build a big, huge business. At the end of the day, if it's all unto you, really, the when Jesus said it's better to give than to receive, he wasn't just talking about it's a really good thing to do. He's actually ultimately more fulfilling.
mhm,
It's more fulfilling to create something that's very valuable and to give that away over and over and over again. We were born and designed to serve. And so I'm saying all of that to go, family was God's design to create humanity in a way that feels nurtured and cared for and loved. And by the way, I experienced Father God and how I experienced my dad. I've experienced the Holy Spirit and how I experienced my mom. It's the that is the first that is the first experience that I have with trusting the Godhead. And then they create a
mhm,
relationship later on with me and God. And I relate to God in how I relate to my father, my earthly father. I relate to Jesus by how I relate to my brothers and sisters. It's supposed to be this really
mm,
clear picture of what a relationship with the Godhead looks like. I first learned that in family. I have somebody that's thinking about
mhm.
my needs, somebody that's invested in pouring into me. Family is so important
Yeah,
because
it's
it was
everything.
God's design. Yeah, it's everything. And um and we get to partake in that.
So, I have never heard it I've never heard it said that the way I relate to my father, my parent okay, so yes, so I'm a total advocate, like, as a dad, we have this awesome opportunity to, like, help our kids understand, how they can relate to God, um, but I've never heard having brothers and sisters can help us to understand how to relate to Jesus. I would love to hear a little bit more about that, I've never heard that before.
Well, if you think about it, if your dad's abusive and you go to church and your dad's abusive, how do you experience Father God? You go, is
Yeah,
he
probably
loving and
angry.
caring? Or is he
Yeah.
looking at everything you do wrong and things you can't
Mm-hmm.
do right? And Jesus is closer than a friend, right? So Jesus very
Hmm.
much is a friend. And in the Gospels, he's portrayed like that in lots of places. And again, the Holy Spirit is our comforter. He's our comforter. When you think about where you get your nurture and comforting from, it's largely your mom, your mother. And
Hmm.
you build a really, really great relationship with a comforter, a nurturer. And that's a very easy connection to
Hmm.
the Holy Spirit. And so I've just seen it in my work with people over and over
That's
and over
cool.
again. They feel betrayed, abandoned by their friends, by their brothers. They have a very hard time connecting to Jesus. They have a
Hmm.
person who's had a very tough relationship with their dad. I mean, I would venture to say it's almost 100% of the time at first. They have a very hard
Hmm.
time with Father God. They have to overcome that, right? They don't
Yeah.
inherently believe that he's got good things for me. They think he's
Mm.
got the right way for me, but it's going to come with a lot of. That's why we get the conversation
Hmm.
like, "My God took me to the woodshed." You know, they don't have the kindness of God leads me to repentance. They have God's disciplining me, and both of those things are okay. It's just we want to, you know, I don't want to embellish on either way. I don't want to embellish on how God sees me one way or another. I want a pure view of what it means to be a son. And
Hmm.
and so, anyways, the more we heal
Love
those
it.
relationships, those earthly relationships, the easier those connections become.
Man. Uh, okay, so then you make this just last little statement as we close the loop on that, and you bring up this whole other thing. Uh, Healing those earthly relationships. Man, I don't know that enough Christians are, and I hate to say it like that because we're God's children here on earth, all of us humans, the broken relationships here on earth are massively disconnecting us to our creator. And so anything else to say on that? The importance of healing. And I know, I mean, I think as dads listening to this right now, this is a really important thing. And I'll just
Yeah.
this Bible, this commandment, okay, the 10 commandments. The
Mhm.
only commandment that came with a promise is honor your father and mother.
Yeah.
Right. And you'll live a long life, which is like, whoa, none of the other commandments say anything about some kind of promise if you fulfill this thing. And so I've been thinking about that more and even kind of diving a
Mhm.
bit more into my relationship with my parents, making sure I am honoring them, you know, one, because they're my parents, and two,
Yeah.
because I want my kids to do the same thing when they're 40 years
Yeah.
old. But anything else behind that? Because, like, if you tell me as a man, there's purpose behind healing, not just your own internal, right? Because I think some men are okay to live feeling a bit crappy. But if I know that it's really having impact on my marriage and my relationship with my kids and the future of my legacy, then maybe I'm willing to do the healing work. So, any
I
other
think
thoughts
people have
around the
to believe
healing
that.
of
Yeah,
relationships?
I think people have to first believe that healing's possible. And
Hmm.
we a, a
Hmm.
a comment I was going to make earlier is I don't blame people for not wanting to be married. Most people grew up in a home where marriage looked more like war than it did love. And so, you
Yeah.
know, who wants to dive into something like that? Who wants to take on that
Right.
responsibility? Um, and so I think we grew up with this model that's a bit dysfunctional. A lot of people that
Hmm.
doesn't look peaceful, that doesn't look, you know, honoring and powerful. And by the way, peaceful to me doesn't mean the lack of confrontation. Confrontation is actually how you eradicate dysfunction in your relationship.
Mm.
It's just how you address confrontation, you know, and what your goals are. So I think every single human being that I know at one point or another has been let down, has had a lot of pain
Mm.
in their life, has been frustrated. And if you don't know how to process pain, then you avoid pain forever. And the easiest way to stay in pain for the rest of your life is by avoiding pain, right? Whatever you avoid eventually owns you, it eventually controls you. Avoid conflict in your marriage. What happens? You have less conflict or more conflict. Avoid conflict with your kids. You have more conflict or less conflict. Avoid
Mm.
avoid
Yeah.
pain with eating. You have less pain in your body or more pain in your body eventually, right? So I don't deny myself anything. Great. That's a great way to deny yourself of everything eventually. You're going to pay for
Mm.
it. And so I think that, you know, when we talk about if we go back to that commandment, honor your mother and father. What's the opposite of that? Don't honor your mother and father. In order to not honor your mother and father, you have to live a life of bitterness, resentment,
Mm.
anger. And I think it's more boils down to what is the result of bitterness, anger, uh,
Oof.
unforgiveness. You just can't, your body is not meant to live under all that
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
tension and frustration and pain and disconnection. And so I think it's one, I do think that it's a promise. I think it's a literal promise. But two, I think that it's an obvious, it,
Mhm.
the person that you're most likely to have bitterness, frustration, pain with is your mom and your dad. I think
Mm.
you spend the most time with them, your family, spend the most time with them. You know, what was the time when when, when you got disappointed by who you thought your dad was and who he really
Right.
is, you know? And so I think that I think God wants us to live a life of wholeness and health, body, soul, and spirit, not just in our
Mhm.
spirit.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so we have to look at my body, right? What am I feeding it? What am I putting into it? How am I sleeping? How am I eating? How am I exercising? Look at my soul, right? How am I doing emotionally? What am I carrying?
All right, my friends, you've been hearing me talk about the Genesis program through Rise of Kings, and I am incredibly excited to invite you to it as well as be a part of it. Rise of Kings has helped thousands of men over the last 5 years discover the reality of their identity. And now they have launched the Genesis program, which is for young men ages 13 to 17. And here's the idea. You as a father would take your son to this 2-day event to start to initiate a conversation and an awareness around what it means to be a man. But the conversation would really be between you and your son. And then after the 2-day event, once we expose your sons to the 4 pillars, to what it means to be a man, then we work with you and your son. I'm actually the coach for the mastermind program. You got Mondo Davis, who does the 2-day event, incredible man, 11 children. He's currently working with his 16-year-old son. I'm working with my 16-year-old son. So you guys, this is fresh. This is real. This matters. So we want to invite you to the 2-day event with you and your son. And then after that, I'll be the coach for the 6-month mastermind where I'm working with you every 2 weeks. And then I'm working with your sons every 2 weeks with the idea that we're helping you to really step into what does it look like to help transition your son from a boy into a man. This is something you won't want to miss. It is worth the time, the resources to really help your son see who he is young and early so that he can love, lead, serve a family and the kingdom moving forward at a young age. Please go to riseofkings.com/FFN to register. You and your son would love to see you in the program.
Every man's got a backpack on. Have I looked in there and see what I'm carrying around? Do I have pain for
Mm.
my dad? Do I have pain and frustration? And another way I could say it is there any room in the house that I don't go in, that I avoid?
Hmm.
And if you don't, if you have a if you have a room in your house that you don't go in, that you're living in some level of bondage, and that has an effect. It's just
Mm.
cause and effect. So, again, it's I think that we have this idea. We have 2 ideas. One, there's a side of like, oh, you could dig forever and never be done with it. And then the other side is like, I'm just going to ignore it. I'm going to shove it down. What good does it do anyways? And you have to find somewhere in the middle. You have to you can't walk around every day going, what's wrong with me? And you also can't ignore what's going on in your life and your emotions and your soul and how you feel about your life. And forgiveness doesn't mean that I restore relationships. So we can get somewhat rid of some of those lies. My dad was an a-hole. My mom was distant. You don't have to go build a brand new, beautiful relationship with him,
Yeah.
but you shouldn't be the judge and the jury because you have that.
Mm.
God created that for you. And you ultimately want to come to a place where I went through a divorce in my life, and my wife had an affair on a good friend of mine, and she got pregnant and left me. And so I was a single dad for 5 years. And I remember at first, I just wanted justice so bad. I wanted to go, honestly, I
Mm.
wanted to kill him. And I wanted to harm them both. I mean, this is just my natural instinct.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting on my bed and just thinking like, God, I want to get back at them so bad. And God said to me, there's no justice in a broken life. I didn't fully
Mm.
understand it. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, if you go and harm her, how does that affect your kids? how does that ultimately solve the problem? If you go and harm him, how does that solve the problem? How does that actually get justice? And he said, real justice is in getting what I paid for, which sounds really churchy, but it's actually the only way that I win. And I realized the only way that I win is if I pray for the reconciliation of their soul, of their spirit, of their body, of their personhood. That's the only way that I win. Whatever he paid for on the cross, how I win, how I actually get justice is all the things that he redeemed me from. I want
Mm,
redemption for them. Of course, I had a lot of feelings and emotions, lots of days that I was,
mm,
you know, F you, I hate you, how dare you in my journal, processing
mhm,
pain. But when we get really good at processing pain and having a framework for it, all of a sudden you're not afraid of life. I can take this risk. I know how to process.
mm,
If you know how to fall, you're not afraid to jump. If you don't know how to fall, you're always afraid to jump. So to me, it's like, it's back to guys,
mm.
how do you gain control of your life? Who's the strongest man in the room? The guy that can share his emotions, the guy that can show up to pain, the guy that can be present, or the guy that has to avoid it all? That's just the bottom
Yeah.
line. What is freedom?
Yeah. How and somebody had said something to me in a conversation recently when they left religion and joined relationship with God. It gave them the ability to take risk, which is what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Similarly, is that once you can process pain and really ultimately you allowed yourself to be fathered by God instead of forging your own path, which would have led to more destruction,
yeah,
which is bonkers and hard and difficult. But just like you said earlier, if you are doing that based on your emotion and your feelings, you're going to forge a path that is not healthy for you. Where if you're allowing yourself to be fathered, then when you are in those moments of like the worst possible thing that could happen, you have a father there who is willing to walk you through the pain to do his ultimate work, which is the reconciliation of all things here, which is like awesome to talk about and super sucky to be a part of at such an intense level.
yeah. Yeah, I just think like what we all want is a life where have a lot of peace, where we're in control, where we feel really powerful.
Mhm.
And
Mm,
that to me is I have a really clear way of processing pain. I don't My past isn't dictating my future, right?
mhm,
I'm working out of the things that were holding me back. I have a healthy outlook on risk, and
mm,
I have control of my will and my emotions. I know how to listen to them, but they're not driving the car. And I can hit the targets that I want to hit. I mean, I don't. It's a really simple life, guys. I think
mm.
any guy, you're like, okay, that's really that's what Jesus wants for you. That's what God wants for you. That's how we're supposed to live. I mean, this life is supposed to be so much easier, so much simpler than I think often what we make it.
So just let me uh, have a question around that. So I
Yeah.
do think sometimes Christians think like my life should be easy, just to use the word you just used, but I, you used easier and then you use simpler. Um, and it's not that if I'm a Christian that my life is void of pain, obviously, but it's easier in the sense that that burden isn't carried by just me, maybe. So like when somebody's going through like what you went through, because you're able to speak to it now, and they're like, why is this happening to me? I've done all the right things, I've been a good Christian. Clearly that's not the point, but what's your response to that when they're in that place of pain, to for them to still get peace?
Yeah. My comment about easy and simple is about the chaos that comes from
Mm.
not knowing, from carrying
Ooh.
tons of baggage,
Hmm.
carrying tons of past pain. It's a very confusing life when you don't unpack, when you don't unload. It's a very confusing
Yeah.
life. And it becomes an
Mm.
unsolvable, like it becomes an uh, unsustainable burden.
Mhm.
So, when I'm talking, just to clarify, when I'm talking about that, Jesus' yoke is easy, his burden is light. So when he talks about easy and light, he also talks about you're gonna experience persecution. You're going to, I
Mm.
mean, look at what all the disciples went through who come follow me, I will make you. hanging upside down on a cross, being skinned
Yep.
alive, stoned to death, burned. But Jesus is using easy and light.
Mm-hmm.
He's saying, hey, the inner turmoil, the inner chaos, that inner world should be full of peace. Oh,
Mm,
what happens externally is external. You don't get to
yeah.
decide. Somebody could drive up right now and shoot me. I mean, I could walk out of here and get stoned. And Jesus is going, my yoke is easy, my burden's light. His yoke
Mm-hmm.
hasn't gotten easier because of that. And we know that because Jesus is in the garden and he's talking to his father, and his father's like, hey, you're going to go to the cross. You're going to be beaten. You're going to be torn. You're going to be, and he's like, I don't want to do that. Is there a plan B? Is there an audible that we can call? And he's like, nope. Jesus is sweating blood. I mean, imagine that you're so distressed that you're sweating blood. It wasn't like Jesus was like,
Mm-hmm.
cool, no worries, easy. He was like, wow, he had the full revelation of what this is about to cost him. And then he goes, where's the
Mm-hmm.
easy burden? Where's the light yoke? Oh, yeah, it's in the joy set before me. So he changed his mindset. He reframed. He went, this is actually what this is about. A little bit of pain, a little bit of pressure, or a whole lot of pain, whole lot of suffering, but look at the joy. And he shifted his focus.
Mm-hmm.
So, sorry, I can't remember your second question, but I really
No,
wanted to
you're
hit
good.
on that
Yeah.
what do I say to people? We don't want getting through one hard thing doesn't uh, take away another hard thing. We don't earn easy things in life. And it
Yeah.
if you're
Yeah.
if you're going through life and life's really easy, it's just back to like this whole earthly experience is just one big giant test. It's just one test. This is not the finish. This is this is not where we're ending up. We're not here to build a kingdom. I mean, everybody that I know that turns 80 or 90 years old, they just leave all their stuff here when they're done and they go to another
Mm-hmm.
place. And I think that we have remember that the goal of living on this planet isn't comfort. It's faithfulness. It's servanthood. Well done, good and
Mm-hmm.
faithful servant. It's stewardship. And that's the goal. So for somebody, it's somebody's going to go through this life and they're going to be a great steward and they're going to go through less physical pain. And somebody's going to go through life and they're going to go through more physical pain and emotional pain. It wasn't my choice to get a divorce. It wasn't my choice to have an affair. It wasn't my choice
Mm-hmm.
for my wife to leave my family. I don't get to choose. I just get to choose how much I carry around from that. I get to choose what I
Mm-hmm.
do with that. I get to choose whether or not I'm going to stay in pain. I'm going to stay bitter. I'm going to stay, you know, or I'm going to unpack that all and I'm going to not just give it to God in theory, because Christians have a lot of theory. What'd you do with your pain? I gave it to
Right.
God. Well, why are you still carrying
Right.
it? I'm going to go through a process, actual process of walking this out, journaling it out, of doing big exchanges with God, and get to a place where I steward my life and I grow with Him, and we should be getting better. Your life should be getting better and better and better, which doesn't mean I have more money. That can be, but my internal world and my
Internal world.
relationship with
Yeah.
God, that's what you control.
Yeah. Yeah. There are so many things I'd love to talk to you about. Um, but I'm going to ask you a question and we'll see where it takes us in our remaining time here. Your dad asked to be fathered and switched, basically his legacy, his generation of like what future family would look like. So you're stepping into this father who is a pastor, is a leader, has changed the course of what family means, etc. And also you still, went through some years of depression, went through some heartache. How how did how did you and let me say this first, because I was
Yeah.
already going to ask this question, seeing that you and your dad have written several books together. And here's where the question's coming from. I have a 16-year-old son. I want to cultivate a relationship with him that it would be possible for him and I to have a book together. I don't care. It's not a
Yeah.
goal for me to have a book
That's
with him,
great.
but am I cultivating that with him? So it's like if somebody was interviewing my son in 25 years, what would the things my son would say my dad was able to walk with me in these ways so that that's possible? And so I'm like, how would you speak to us fathers right now to cultivate a relationship with our sons, to
Yeah,
have that kind of relationship as men, as adults?
it's a great question. I think 15 years old, and my dad um, stopped me, and he told me at home, "I want you to make all of your mistakes at home
Hmm.
because you have mom and I."
Hmm.
Uh, I was 10 years old when I first found masturbation. I don't know how, I just did. I was 12 years old when I had oral sex with a guy friend of mine. I didn't know what oral sex was. I was just a curious kid. And I remember going home and telling my dad, you know, about the oral sex with a guy friend of mine. And it was, I didn't know the word. That would have been really helpful. I had to actually describe what I was doing. And I remember my dad telling me, "Hey, you're just curious. It's part of, it's part of being curious. It's part of life, but you don't need to do that. It's not what we do." And he talked about my sex drive. You have a sex drive, and that your sex drive is, it makes you really curious, and that's something that you're gonna have to learn how to control. So my dad, he taught me, you are not your feelings, you're not your worst day. You're the virtues and the values that you embrace. You're not your biggest mistake. And I was struggling with 14. I found pornography. I was struggling, hooked on pornography for 2 years, and I never hid it from my dad. I was battling it. So I'd ask my dad questions and we'd talk about it. And my dad was in my corner, never shamed me,
Hmm.
but also didn't provide a bunch of permission for it. He's like, let's talk about it.
Hmm.
What do you think's driving that? What do you think it's coming from? How you
Hmm.
doing this week? And it was my dad also that told me, at 16, like, hey, why don't we go talk to, or 15, why don't we go talk to your mom and your sisters and let them know about the pornography? It was my family that gathered around me. When I told them, I was terrified, but I told them, and they just said, man, we love you, Jay. They prayed for me. They reminded me of who I
Wow.
was. I felt pure for the first time at 15. I hadn't felt pure in 5 years. And I wore a white t-shirt to school every day, 15 years old,
Hmm.
for a whole year. So I had parents that approved of me. I had parents that loved me. I wanted my friends' approval, but I didn't need it.
Hmm.
And I think when we're young, so I'm answering your question in a long way. When you're
No,
young,
no, it's a beautiful way. Thank you.
when you're young, uh, babies don't have a way to regulate their own emotions. So what they do is they co-regulate, right? A baby cries because it only thinks about itself. It only knows how to think about itself. It cries, and the mother comforts. The mother cares for him. The father comforts, and the father cares for him. It learns that it's important. It learns that it's going to get taken care of. It learns that if it has a need, that need's going to get met. And it builds trust and it builds relationship. And what's happening is mom and dad are wiring that baby. They're either wiring it for connection or for disconnection. If your parents are checked out, if they are stressed out, well, then you get wired for that, right? You get
Hmm.
wired to self sustain. You get wired to self protect. You get wired to armor up. That's a world in which you're going to have to protect yourself from authority. You're going to have to hide your pain. You're going to have to find comfort in other things, pornography, addiction. Essentially, addiction is
Yeah.
the opposite of sobriety. Isn't addiction? It's connection. Well, if you don't have connection in your home, you go find it somewhere else.
Hmm.
And so, to me, it all goes back to um, I grew up in a home where I was deeply loved. I was cared for. We did conflict. It was always very respectful. My dad cleaned up his messes when he made them.
Hmm.
Um, he handled my worst mistakes. And my dad's not perfect. He's just the best man that I know. And if you
Hmm.
want your kids to trust you, sure, don't be their best friend. I had a healthy fear of my dad. I mean, he did
Hmm.
not talk back to my mom. That was not okay. But I also knew that my dad loved me deeply. I watched how he
Hmm.
sacrificed and served my mom. I watched how he served me. I watched my dad, go without things so that we could have. That's a guy that you watch your dad lay down his life for the family, you're going to respect him. You're going to want to follow after him. And that takes a lot. So I think, that's the goal. The instructions perfect in the Bible. Wives, respect your husbands. Okay, cool. Husbands, lay down your life. Lay it
Mhm.
down. Lay down
Mhm.
everything, all the greatness, all the power, all the will, so that your wife and family can really succeed.
Um, 1, thank you. 2, the way that you were able to just share everything you just shared. So there's 2 major things that I'm seeing that I would desperately want in my own life, and I know every man would love to have in theirs. So 1, you just shared, like you were telling me you had a turkey sandwich yesterday. That's how it came out. And your dad, who had no training other than, he was fathered by somebody, but no
Yeah.
training, in a moment of like, I could freak out about what my kid's sharing with me, was just like, man, I'm sorry that happened. That's not who we are. And, like you said, there was no permission, but there was no shame and guilt. So for us men listening to right now, is there anything you could give us from those 2 things? Because it's like, sure, I'm saved, I'm a Christian, but that doesn't mean that I all of a sudden know how to do the things that you're talking about, you know? So sorry, I'm asking this 2 questions really. 1, how is your dad able to show up with that unattachment from your decisions? And then 2, anything other than you being deeply loved at home for you to just be able to share so healthily with us right now?
Um, yeah, the first one, I don't know how my dad did it. I don't.
Mm,
He had a grandfather that loved him a lot, who was a drunk.
yeah.
And his grandfather was the one that showed him how to be a man, even though he was a drunk, wasn't saved. And,
Mhm.
and I think my dad felt really special and really cared for by
Mm,
that man, even though his fathers beat him and didn't love him. And then also, I just think it was the grace of God. I think that my
mhm,
father, really loved God and really feared
mm,
God, and, um, and wanted to love me like that. My dad, when he
mm,
had kids, realized how much he had missed out on because of not having
mm,
kids. I don't know how my dad did it. I really don't, I have so much admiration for him in that. Um, and I don't understand, your second question.
I mean, you kind of answered it. My second question was just like you just shared. I asked about your relationship with your dad, and you shared this beautiful story that's you know relatively serious, and you're able to just share it without. It's like it's just what happened.
Oh,
This is how it happened.
y you
So
kn
I find
yeah.
a lot of value in you being able to just share so openly.
I
It's
think
great because we need that.
one of the greatest things that a man can do is weaponize his story. So many men are
Yeah.
hiding the most powerful thing in their life.
Hmm.
Your story is a
Yep.
testimony. Whatever I went through and overcome, I can now give that away. My dad told me that at 13. Whatever you overcome, you can give it away, son.
Mm,
And so don't hide the hard things that you've been through. Find somebody that needs it and give it to them. And that's something that my dad and my environment modeled for me. And so, yeah, my divorce, my nervous breakdown, I lost the use of my arms for a year, couldn't make a peanut butter
mm,
and jelly sandwich, couldn't drive. That happened 3 years after my divorce. I mean, I've been through so much stuff: remarriage, miscarriages, infertility, all of it, every single bit of it. If if it only benefited me, it just feels like such a waste. My
mm,
biggest
mm.
mistakes
Yeah.
aren't they're not the commentary on me as a human being. It's the commentary on, you know, what uh what sin does, what bad decisions do,
Mm,
and then how I got out of it. So if we are our worst mistakes, then we all just have to hide.
yeah. Yeah. Ah, so good. Jason, I could talk to you for another hour. I do want to honor your time.
Thank you, man.
Um, uh, yeah, there's so much we could talk about, but you gave us so much. Any last story, any last ideas or thoughts that are coming up before we wrap up?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what we all need is a very low barrier to entry. Even me.
Mm,
Look, everybody, including myself, knows if I did this one thing today, it would add benefit to my life, but it's hard to do. And
mm-hmm,
I think that's part of why we created BraveCo. We've got a year-long discipleship course Guys can access it for free. If you want to get some real tools, how to heal father wounds, how to identify what's in your backpack, um, how to help break addiction in your life, how to set healthy boundaries, like a real framework. If you want the practicals, you can literally go to braveco.org, sign up for that for free. If you don't love it, you still get it for free. If you want to pay for it, it's still free. I've had thousands and thousands of men go through it. We're also launching a rite of passage. We've done our rite of passage for 2 years. We're building curriculum for fathers and sons. We just took it on the road to Jacksonville, Florida this last year. Built this incredible partnership with Spartan Races. But
Cool.
we have a father-son curriculum coming. I think that the greatest gift a father can give a son is a clear pathway into manhood. No young man should stumble his way into manhood. And so we're doing that. We're making it really easy for dads to get our 7 principles of initiation, 7 pillars of initiation, to be able to walk your son into manhood in a really, really clear, simple way. So braveco.org.
And that'll be at braveco.org as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So guys, I just highly encourage you, go on Instagram, follow BraveCo, go online, put your email in, get on the newsletter so you know when things are coming. And clearly, I know every man right now, like, you're listening to this with like you're having a holy moment where you go, wow, this was serious. Like, I'd love to speak and think through my own mistakes and failures the way that Jason is. And so know that he's the man behind, creating BraveCo with other great men. And this is a tool that they believe in so much. And this is the tough thing, guys. It's like, this is the wrestle that I'm sure Jason goes through. Is like, do we charge $5,000 for this so that people actually use it? Or do we give it away for, or do we give it away for free because we want every man to have access? And the but guys, 100 of you are listening right now and you're not, like, one of you is going to do it. And it's like, this is here for you now to have incredible marriages, to have that inner healing. So I would just say, if you have that little nudge, just stop whatever you're doing. This is the most important thing. Like, do something to invest in yourself. I love that you're listening to the podcast. That's great. But like, it's time to go do work. And there's a lot of good resources out there, BraveCo being one. So I just say, take action. We're giving you the aim, right? We're going to show you how to win, and it's going to give you life. It's just sometimes showing up at the football field or the baseball field for the first time feels like, I don't know anybody. I don't know what to do. This is going to be weird. But then you're there for 10, 15 minutes and you're stoked. You're part of it. So dude, this is a massive invitation, massive. And there's seriously zero like barrier of entry other than your ego and a little bit of nervousness, which is like, isn't your marriage, isn't your kids, isn't your son, your daughter's worth a little bit of uncomfortableness? So just do it. Just do it. Jason,
Thanks,
any last words, my friend?
No, man, that's it. Thank you guys. Thanks for having me on.
All right. I love it. Blessings to you, your family, the work you're doing. Thank you. And I look forward to our paths crossing again in the future.
Thank you so much, man.
All right. Until next time. Yeah. I mean, I think you're feeling it. Leaving that conversation, I feel inspired to more deeply enter into connection with myself, with my family, with the openness around conversation. The way that he just spoke so clearly and openly and vulnerably was empowering and exciting, and that our mistakes don't define us. Incredible. I know you're feeling this right now. And I really encourage you guys to go check out BraveCo. Just go check it out. Go check out the program. Take some action. And invest in yourself. Please send this podcast conversation to a friend. Just say, hey, dude, your mind's going to be blown. Listen to this. And if you want to have impact on the world, if you want your kids to have, good people to marry and family to be important, we need other men who are stepping into this whole thing called fatherhood with the same intention and desire that you and I have. So shoot a text to a friend with a link to the episode. Please go write a review on whatever platform you do this on. It helps spread the word that what we're talking about here matters and has impact. And there's so many guys out there who need to hear this. So don't be selfish and please share it. Okay. All right, dudes. Thank you for being here. Thank you for leaning into fatherhood. What you do matters. Do not be like everybody else. Be yourself. That's who your kids, spouse, and community needs. This is your guide, Ned Schaut. Together, let's rebel against the view that fatherhood has little impact, and let's create lives engaged in mastering the craft of fatherhood. I look forward to hanging out with you next time.